Hey everybody, my name's Ryan, and here at eTrailer we install, test fit, and review a lot of different parts. That way we could try to answer any questions those of you might have. And that's exactly what we're doing here today on our 2021 Ram 2500. We're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the B&W Underbed trailer hitch. This fifth wheel installation kit is designed to let you install your B&W Companion fifth wheel trailer hitches. The underbed design of this kit allows for full truck bed access when you're ready. It's under 5 minutes to convert your empty truck bed into a fifth wheel hitch. We'll start by unlocking our B&W hitch and installing our fifth wheel adapter. We have ours pre-assembled, but you can adjust the uprights here depending on your truck and trailer combination. At this point, the hitch is ready to attach to the trailer. There's a little clip here that you can release. Basically, it's a safety pin. Then you can swing the handle out and you can watch the jaws open. You're ready to back into your trailer now. Once you're secure under the trailer, you can reinstall the clip. Since the fifth wheel installation kit doubles as a gooseneck hitch, when you're not towing your fifth wheel, you can remove it, turn it over, and we can store it upside down in the hitch. That way we'll have full bed access. So nowadays, these type of hitches are becoming more and more popular. These trucks are really capable, and so a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable pulling large trailers around, whether it be a camper, work trailer, whatever the case may be. You're definitely going to want a hitch that is going to be able to handle just about anything you want to throw at it, and that's exactly what this B&W is going to be able to do. Now, to be honest with you, I've installed quite a few gooseneck trailer hitches, and the one thing that really separates the B&W from many of the others is the overall craftsmanship. These things are really nice. They're put together very well, and even down to the little things, just the hardware that comes with it and the ease of use, everything works like it should and how you would expect it to. And to me, that's something that is extremely important. Whenever you're pulling around a big, heavy trailer, you're not going to want any weak links. And considering, since this is your main attachment point, you want it to be very reliable, and this is going to be just that. It's going to have some good weight capacities. The gross towing weight is going to be 30,000 pounds. That's going to be the amount of weight that's pulling on the ball. And the vertical load limit is going to be 7,500 pounds. That's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the ball. And in case you're wondering, the ball is going to be 2 5/16 in diameter. And something that's pretty cool about this too is the fact that it is a turnover ball. So what that means is whenever you're not using this, you can actually pull it out, flip it around, and store it right inside of your hitch. That way you're not going to have to worry about, leaving this behind somewhere on accident, or, you've got it rolling around in the backseat of your truck. It's just really convenient. You can store it here, not have to think about it too much. And not to mention, because of that, we're pretty much going to have full bed access. We're not going to have really anything obstructing the middle of our truck. Granted, we will have our safety chains here, but in all honesty, these only come up a little bit, and they're about even with the channels here on our bed, so really not taking up a ton of space. That way, if maybe you want to throw in, some lumber back here, or if you're doing a project at the house and you put some other material, four-wheelers, motorcycles, whatever the case may be, you're not going to have a big hitch taking up a ton of space. So the U-bolts here where you put your safety chains are pretty cool. They're actually spring-loaded, so when you're not using them, they sit nice and flush, and when you are ready to use them, you can pull up, and you got quite a bit of space actually, so shouldn't really have any issues getting pretty much any size hook that you might have on there. So whenever the ball is locked in, it's going to be very solid. There's hardly any movement at all. And that's really because it has a square design. And so you're not going to have to worry about that ball kind of spinning or rotating on you. One thing I do like about the B&W is the handle. It's super easy to operate, and that's really not the case with all goosenecks. This one, whenever you're ready to unlatch, you just pull it out, kind of move it to the left a little bit, and it'll stay open for you. That way you can get your ball in there, do whatever you need to do. Whenever you're ready to hook up, you just kind of pull it to the right a little bit, and more or less let it go back in on its own. You might have to kind of help it a little bit, and you're locked in. So super user friendly, and you don't really need to think about it or fight with it a whole lot. Now, something I do just want to point out, from time to time, once you first install the hitch, sometimes the powder coating on there can kind of hang your handle up a little bit. And usually you can solve that very quickly by just lubricating it a little bit, work it in and out a couple times, and then it'll be as smooth as butter. So at the end of the day, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. To be honest with you, these B&Ws are my favorite, and that's really just because the overall reliability, the ease of use, and the quality of construction. And because of those things, getting them installed is a little bit easier too compared to some of the others. Everything fits well and don't really fight you a whole lot. Matter of fact, I'll say probably the most difficult part about this one is actually tightening all the hardware. It just takes a little bit of time. But if you follow along with me, I'll show you some of the tools that I used and some tricks to make it a little bit easier. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put it on together now. So to begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our truck. And I went ahead and just temporarily removed our spare tire. That way it gives us a lot more room to work and see what we're doing. With that being said, we're going to need to remove this heat shield here, which will also allow us to get to where we need to go. So to get this shield off, we're going to have 4 fasteners right here. And then we're going to have a couple of them on this back edge. They're really hard to see, but actually relatively easy to feel. So we're going to take a 10mm socket and get all of those removed. So with all the bolts removed, we can lower this down and set it off to the side for now. Now what we need to do is lower our exhaust down a little bit to give us a little bit of extra space. We're going to have one rubber hanger right here that we need to remove. So you want to spray it down with some soapy water. That'll help lubricate it. I'm just going to take a pry bar and pry one end of our isolator hanger off. Now what we can do is grab our template, and how this is going to work is this hole right here, we're going to line that up with this hole right here in our cross member. This is the hole on the passenger side front. So we're going to line this up. When we're lining that up, we're going to push this up flat against the bottom of our bed. And this small hole here is going to be an indicator for us. We're going to mark it, and that's going to let us know where we need to drill. So when you do this, it has to go on top of the cross member. So you want to kind of sneak it in like this. Line that up. Line the 2 holes up. Want to get it as best as you can. And when you line them up, you also want to make sure you push this flat against the bed of the truck. So I got it where I need it to be. I'm going to take a marker and put a dot there. So we'll come back with our drill bit and create a pilot hole in the bottom of our truck bed. Now we can hop up in the bed of our truck and take a hole saw and create our opening for our gooseneck to come through. So here's my pilot hole that we drilled from the bottom. My hole saw that I'm using is 3.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and get that cut out. And while I'm in the bed, I'm just going to grab my vacuum cleaner and pick up our mess here. And then what I'm going to do is take a paint stick, and where we have bare metal from creating the hole, I'm going to put a layer of this paint on there. That's just going to help keep it protected from any rust and corrosion. If you don't have one of these paint sticks, you can always just use some spray paint. That'll get the job done as well. So now back underneath our truck, we want to take a close look at our center section here. And what we're looking for is any extra lines, wiring, plastic clips, anything like that that will be attached to it. Because this is where our hitch is actually going to set. So if you have stuff in the way here, you're going to need to grab a flat blade screwdriver and just pop those out and get them removed. But that being said, we can now focus on getting our nut plates installed. So if you look here, we have kind of a handle and two nuts that are attached to the plate. And these two nuts are actually going to line up with these two holes on our center section here. And they're going to line up on each side. So everything's going to be the same on each side here. Now the way to get these in, what you're going to want to do is make sure that this portion of the nut is going to be facing down. And the way to get these in there, it's kind of tricky. They're a little bit tight. You're going to want to set these up on top of the center section. So you're going to kind of have to weasel it in there and kind of find that sweet spot. Get a little creative here and try to kind of rotate it in there. And I feel like once this pops in, it'll probably be a lot easier to work with. I think the most challenging part is just trying to physically get it in there. So once you work that nut plate into position, this is what it should look like. As you can see, the threaded portions of it line up with our two outermost holes there. So you want to get that into position. And I went ahead and did the same thing over on this side as well. So now what I'd like to do is just kind of go over our attachment points on our hitch itself and how we're going to position it underneath the truck. So if we look on one side of it, we're going to have this little lever here. You want this to be on the driver's side of your truck, and you notice the hole here is actually offset. You want the offset portion, this side, to face towards the front. Now with that being said, we're going to have a total of 8 bolts that's going to hold this into position. This is what they're going to look like. 4 of them will run up through the hitch on the sides here into those nut plates that we put in. And 4 more are going to come in through our center section into the hitch, into these threaded portions. So really straightforward, but I just wanted to kind of show you how we're going to do this before we put it under our truck. And just to kind of put 2 and 2 together, I figured I'd show you, we could take a quick look at the center section here. So as I mentioned before, the 2 bolts are going to come up through the hitch into the nut plates that we put in. And the 4 bolts on the side are going to line up with these larger holes here in our factory center section. So 2 on each side. With that being said, let's grab our hitch and get it into place. So grab our center section, get it up. You may have to finesse it in. And while we're holding it up there, we'll grab our bolts and get a few of them started hand tight. That way it'll support itself. Now that we have all of our hardware in place and hand tight, I suggest hopping up in the bed of the truck and just making sure that everything lines up here. If it's off just a hair, it's not dead center, that's okay. A lot of times what can happen is once you kind of tighten up all your bolts, it'll draw everything up exactly where it needs to be. So now that we know it is lined up, let's go ahead, get underneath and tighten everything down. Now back underneath the truck, we can grab our socket and get everything tightened down. I'm going to tighten down these bolts first here on the bottom, and once those are tightened, we can come back and get the ones on the side. For this bolt back here, it is relatively close to our handle mechanism, so you may need to use a thin walled socket like this one here, or even a box wrench to get in there and actually get this tightened out. So now just kind of a quick tech tip to make it a lot easier to get to the bolts on this side. I actually used a strap, a ratcheting strap, went around my exhaust and cranked it down, and that pulled my exhaust a few inches kind of down and towards the center of our truck, which makes it a lot easier to get to these bolts. And without doing this, these are nearly impossible to get to. So this only took an extra minute and makes life a lot easier. So with the exhaust being held like that, I'm easily able to get to my bolts and run them down. And for the bolts here on the side, when they're this far out, it's really difficult to get a socket in there. We just don't have a ton of space between the head of the bolt and the hat channel here on our bed. So what I suggest doing is just using a ratcheting wrench like this one to tighten them down. If you don't have a ratcheting wrench, a standard one will work just fine. It'll just take you a little bit longer. You have to be a little more patient. But I just figured this is something that is definitely worth mentioning. So now that all of our hardware is tightened down, we want to be sure to come back with a torque wrench and torque it all to the amount specified in our instructions. Now when you do this, you want to make sure to torque down the 4 bolts on the bottom first, and then we can come back and get the bolts there on the side. Now just kind of a quick tech tip. For the bolt that's all the way back here, it's a little tricky to get to. What I found is to use a combination of different tools here. So I have my socket, a swivel, an extension, and then I actually have an extension that the end of it allows you to rotate a little bit more as well. And I used all 3/8 sizes. It's a little bit thinner. And then I just used an adapter that goes from 3/8 to 1/2 inch. That way I could get my torque wrench on it. And with everything in there like this, you're able to get on that bolt and actually get it tightened down properly. Now what we can do is move to our driver's side rear wheel well. And what we need to do is loosen up some wiring that's on top of the frame rail. That way it'll be out of the way and we're able to get started on our handle that goes in here. So it's a little tricky to see, but there's going to be some plastic fasteners starting here and a couple more that run down towards the back of the truck, and we need to pop those free. I'm just going to use a trim tool. You can use a screwdriver as well though. So I'm just going to pry up, get those fasteners removed, and then you can kind of just push that wiring back in there. Now we can grab our handle and slide it in through this opening. Make sure you clear anything that's in the way. And when you do this, you want to make sure that this angle here, this lip, is facing up. You don't want to have it facing down towards the ground. So we'll just kind of set it in there, let it rest. We can go underneath the truck and get everything connected. Now underneath the truck, we're going to take this bracket here and attach it to our handle, which is coming out right here. Now we don't have a ton of space and room to work here, so it is a little tight, just kind of a forewarning. But the way this is going to work on our truck, we're going to have 2 square holes at the very end of our handle. Those are going to line up with these 2 holes here on this bracket, and the bracket's going to get attached to that handle. You're going to do that by taking carriage bolts and dropping them through our handle. When you're doing this too, you want to make sure that all your lines are clear and everything else. I'll do that for both of those square openings. Take our bracket, push it through there, and what we're going to do, where those carriage bolts drop down, we're just going to take flange nuts and secure them. Again, this is really tight, so take your time with it. You'll find that spot where you kind of get an opening and you can get in there and get everything started. Once we have them started though, we're just going to leave them hand tight for the time being. So now that that one end of the bracket is loosely attached to the handle, this end is going to get to attach to the mechanism here that actually releases the pin inside of the hitch. Again, we're going to use the same hardware, just a carriage bolt. You drop down through. And we're going to take our flange nuts, get these started. And now that it's in place, you can go ahead, grab some sockets and get everything tightened down. I'm going to use a 9/16 socket. And just kind of a tech tip with the bolts being really hard to get to back here, since our gas tank and everything's in the way, what I found that makes it easiest is to use a 1/4" drive and a 9/16 socket on the end of it that allows you to swivel, and that gives you enough room to get up in there and tighten those nuts down. So now we can get ready to install our safety chain hook. So in the bed of the truck here, if we look at our gooseneck, you want to make sure that pin is running through there, so you want your handle to be pushed all the way in. What you're going to do is take your ball, set it in there, and then they actually give us a nice little template here, so it should make things pretty easy. We're going to slide this over our ball, and you want these portions here to face towards the back of the truck. And there's some little openings there. And what I'm going to do is just hold this template secure and use a small drill bit just to kind of make some marks in the bed of our truck. I'm not going to drill all the way through just yet. I'm going to do that. That'll let us know where I need to completely drill. And do the same thing over here. Should be able to lift this off. You can see we have our marks made. And so I'll go ahead and use my pilot bit to continue to drill all the way through. These ones should just go right through the bed. However, the ones closest to the rear, you should feel it punch through the bed, and then you'll have to drill through that cross member underneath as well. So there, went through the bed, and then I can go ahead and drill through that cross member. I'm going to do the same thing for this side as well. With our pilot holes made, I'm going to come back with an 11/16 drill bit and enlarge them to the final size. So once these two are enlarged, you're going to do the same thing for these over here. Now that we have all of our holes drilled, we'll come back with our vacuum, clean everything up, and then what I'm going to do is take a paint stick and paint the edges there, that bare metal, to protect it from rust, just like we did our main hole here. So once our paint is dry, we're going to take our U-bolts, and these are just going to drop right down through like so. So now back underneath our truck, here's where our U-bolts drop through. And what we're going to do is take these springs. We want the large end of the spring facing up, the skinny end pointing down towards the ground. We're going to put that over the U-bolt. We're going to take a hex nut and just get it started and tight. I'm going to do that same thing for the other side right here, as well as the U-bolt on this side. With all of these on there, now what we can do is tighten them down. And with these, what you want to do is tighten the nut down to where it is flush with the end of our bolt. So about there is perfect. We'll do the same thing for the rust one. Now what we can do is go ahead and re-secure our exhaust. It is really tight, so I do suggest putting a lot of lubricant on there to help it go back together easier. And I'm going to try to line it up. Push it into place and rehang it. At this point, we can go ahead and reinstall our heat shield the opposite way that we removed it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the B&W Underbed trailer hitch on our 2021 Ram 2500.